It takes two. I thought one was enough. It's not true. It takes two of you. Just the two of us. It takes two.
Thank you both so much for joining me on this, the second episode of season 2 of It Takes Two. That's a lot of twos. I am producer Daphne. I am your host for today, and I am joined by the wonderful Kyle Mroz and Katie German.
Hi.
Hi.
First off, Kyle, did I pronounce your last name correctly?
We actually pronounce it Mroz, but maybe you are right. Like, that's just how I've been growing up with Mroz. But
Who knows?
Exactly.
Who knows? Maybe it's Mroz.
Exactly.
Just to kind of get started, let's talk a little bit about who you both are as people and who you both are as artists. So, Kyle, let's start with you.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Kyle Mroz. I use he, him pronouns. As a person, let's start. I guess I grew up in a really small town outside of Winnipeg. I still live here today. It's called Beausejour. So growing up, I had really limited experience to the arts. I had to kind of make those opportunities for myself and get rides to the city if I wanted to do theater and do all those things. So it was definitely more of a struggle growing up in a very small town. I did a lot of musicals growing up, and I kind of shifted from performing to realizing I can actually study theater in school. So I went to get my BA at University of Winnipeg, and I'm in my last year, so I'm almost done. And I think I kind of shifted towards more education and teaching, directing, rather than performing. And I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise, as I really have been loving it, and it's been really great. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Katie, how about you? Who are you as a person and who are you as an artist?
I'm the same thing. Bonjour, my name is Katie German. I am a Métis artist, performing artist, director. I wrote a play, educator. Basically, whatever I can get my hands on artistic-wise to keep me working, that's kind of what I do. I try to insert myself in as many things as possible. I am also a mother to two really incredible human beings who keep me on my toes and who keep me honest. I'm a lover of like creation and excitement and curiosity, and so I think that's something that drives through everything that I do. Yeah, and right now I'm performing, and then in January I'm directing, and so I just go with the wind and see where it takes me.
I am very similar. My family has a running joke every holiday where they're like, how many jobs do you have right now?
Yeah.
And I'm usually like, 5.
Yeah.
Because that's being a freelancer, and it's great, and we love it.
It always surprises me when someone's like, I'm a banker. I'm like, great, and what else?
And so, like, when you're not
That's
banking, what are you doing?
What do you mean? What do you mean you're only doing one job?
Yeah.
Oh, I also run Junior Musical Theatre Company, so I
yes, you do.
own
Absolutely.
a children's musical theatre company, which is probably important to this conversation.
Okay, so Kyle, you kind of came to us saying that you wanted to be a part of this mentorship program. So what made you want to work with Katie?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working a lot at Meraki Theatre in Winnipeg, and I work at another theatre company just outside of Winnipeg in Oakbank. I wanted more in terms of musical theatre and directing kids in that way, rather than student-led theatre, which is what Meraki's all about. I just wanted more of a structure, and I thought learning from Katie, as she's the director of JMTC, I thought this would be a great person to work with, as she has a lot of experience in that area, and I thought working with someone else and learning just from another set of eyes was going to be really helpful, and it was.
Yeah. Katie, how about you? Why were you kind of excited to work with Kyle?
Oh, I love people who are excited with working with younger audiences. I think it is probably the most challenging style of theater to do because the kids are so freaking honest, and so anyone who is bold enough to take on that challenge and work with people, and I've seen what Kyle does, and I've seen the way that they work and how they excite people to becoming like these artists that they are. So that's kind of why I was excited to say yes. And I love talking about things and also learning from other people and how they do it too. And I always find like I'm constantly reevaluating how I do things, and so hearing how Kyle does things and how I do things and how we can meld them together or how we do things differently, that always kind of shapes how I move on into the future.
Kyle and Katie, you both now are kind of starting to direct a lot with both by and for younger audiences. What is it about directing kids that has been kind of part of your artistic journey so far? Like, what's drawing you towards that?
I just like that they know what they want and they're very, yeah, what Katie said, very honest. And you can get them to do some really, really fun things. And when you can't get them to do those very, very fun things, you can kind of, I'm learning how to adapt what I want to be portrayed, if that makes sense. Like if I want them to do a big dance number, but we only have some singers in the group, I'm like, how can we make it look like they are shining on stage or look like they're having so much fun? And like, it's a challenge in that way. And that's why I really loving working with kids. It's very challenging. And there's just a lot more elements, I feel, than working with adults.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's something wonderfully unself-conscious about kids where they are so down to look like giant goofballs at the drop of a hat. But with adults, you got to like coax it out of us.
And they're also not afraid to call you on your bullshit in like their wonderful kid ways, but they will always keep you on your toes, because if they're bored, they're going to tell you. And if they don't think it's a good idea, they will tell you. Whereas like as adults, we learn to like keep these ideas in and maybe go home and talk about it with someone else, but we don't immediately say like, that sucks. and it's such a good way to actually evaluate yourself and be like, am I doing something that's boring right now? Because maybe we should change it. Maybe we should shift. Or like, why are we doing things? Because the biggest question that comes out of at least the younger people in my house is why? And it makes me answer it, because if I don't answer it well enough, they're going to ask why again. And so it really makes me think about why we do things and why this is the way that we choose to do it, and why can't we do it in a different way, or why is this person asking why? Like, what have I not given them that they need more of in order to like help them figure out the reason as to what we're doing the thing?
Totally. I just like finished up a program called C Spot Read, where I take my dog in and like we get read to by kids, and it's wonderful. But that's something I've really learned is like how to be more concise with my language and make sure that I am being as crystal clear as possible, because now all of a sudden I'm talking to little humans that are a third of my age, and maybe I'm not explaining myself properly. And if I can't explain myself to a child, then I'm probably not doing a good job explaining myself to an adult.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah. And I mean, they're going to be the adults in the future. And so like, how can you morph and change the way that things are maybe going to be in the future? Or like, how can you question so that they can figure out like different and better ways of doing too? I find that really thrilling.
Yeah. It's kind of wonderful for both of you, I guess, to be able to get in on kind of the ground floor of what the future of performing arts is going to look like, because you're imbuing these kids, whether they become performers or theater artists in the future, or if they just become really confident and well-spoken adults, like they're getting given those tools now to become those people in the future. And it's wonderful to get to kind of track the impression that you're making over time with them.
It's great. It's really exciting. Yeah.
It's exciting to think about like what it's going to be too. Like even if you don't know what it's going to be, like seeing people start questioning and start like tearing down these things that have just always kind of existed, that makes me really look forward to the future.
Yeah. I know that you two were started kind of drafting a kind of I don't want to call it a manifesto, because that's very like basement bunker, but kind of a how-to guide on like working and directing with kids. So can you tell me a little bit more about what that was like and how that kind of came about through this mentorship process?
Yeah, I guess me and Katie were kind of talking about the overall process of directing a show, from like the first day of like getting a script to all the way to like opening night. And we kind of went through and like we split it into different categories. So like we have the prep work, auditions, which is what we thought were really important. The first day of rehearsal, like what does that first day look like? The actual rehearsal process and how that's broken up, and then moving into doing technical rehearsals and in the theater. So we kind of broke it up that way, and we talked about, and I put my own experiences in, and Katie talked about her experiences about how we can make this as smooth as possible, and how there are different tricks and tips and tricks to be used within this document that I can go back and refer to later. But it's been really good to actually like go through it in such detail and really talk about like what kids need and how we can adapt it to make this great show at the end.
What else did the last 4 weeks look like for you both?
A lot of talking and a lot of like musing and wondering and like asking why we're doing certain things, and working through like how can we do things differently to support like everybody rather than just doing the same old thing that everyone has always done. And a lot of like sharing of stories, which is really nice because Kyle has been sharing a lot of experiences that they had working with students, and it's really lovely to hear those things and be like, oh, I also had that similar experience, or I have never experienced that before, so what would I do in that case, or like I wonder why that happened.
Did anything kind of surprise you about this process?
Yeah, honestly, a lot surprised me. Like, I would be thinking about one thing that I would do, and then Katie would be like, well, why wouldn't you just try this? And I'm like, well, of course, like, that's the best option here. Like, how did I not think of that myself? Like, it was just like the little things I felt was what surprised me the most, like how we can get past the situation that's happening or what the kid's going through. Yeah, learning these tricks from Katie, like, it gave me, I guess, an overall better process to the entire experience and how I can make it better for everybody. It's like, yeah, you can plan an entire day or an entire rehearsal, but if someone's having a bad day or kids don't show up because they're busy with other things, it's like, okay, we got to switch exactly what we're doing and we got to figure something else out, and you kind of have to work on the fly and just make it work.
Absolutely. And that also translates in a huge way to the conversations we're having in adult rehearsal spaces about how to meet people where they're at. And maybe it doesn't manifest in adults like sitting in the corner pouting and refusing to do anything.
Sometimes it does.
And sometimes it does. And you know what? That's okay too. We've all been there. It's fine. But it is about like being adaptable and meeting people where they're at and learning like, okay, maybe my plan for today isn't going to work because you're having a terrible day. And how do we move forward and do something productive, I'm using air quotes here, that is still going to be respectful of where your head is at today.
And I think that's a bit of the secret, which I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I feel like that's why I love working with younger peeps, is because it's the exact same thing as working with older peeps. It's just you kind of get like that immediate reflection back as to whether something's working or not. But then you can do everything that we do with younger audiences with adult audiences too, and it'll strengthen it and make it stronger. That's, I think, one of my favorite things is that people are like, how do you work with kids? I'm like, oh, well, because it helps that. And then when I work with adults, it helps working with kids. And so it's all like cyclical.
Yeah, I guess people probably have this image of like herding cats and everyone's running around with a pool noodle, bopping each other on the noggin. But like, yeah, I'm sure there are days like that too. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I think kids just want to be able to play. And I think as adults, we like being able to play. And it all just kind of wonderfully melds together.
And if you get 30 actors in a room and they're all adults, like, you better believe we're going to be running around in circles and bopping people in the head with things.
We just got props today. Of course I'm whacking you on the head with it.
And I feel like kids will tell you how they feel. They literally will be like, I'm having a bad day today. It's like, okay, great. How can I support you to help you? And we're adults, I feel like in the professional industry, you are told to hold it in and just like do it for the day. And like, we're going to get through this. Where kids are like, I am not doing great. And they will literally tell you, and you just have to work with it. And that's what I think is so cool about working with kids, is that, again, yeah, they're really, really honest.
Yeah, I know that with the kids that I was reading with, it was really lovely to watch kind of this next generation of really intense emotional literacy and being able to name how they're feeling. And like, there was no shame, and there was no like, oh, I shouldn't tell this person that I'm having a bad day. It's, no, this is what I need from you today as the person I see as an authority figure. And I'm like, great, thank you for telling me. This is awesome information that I have now.
Yeah. So I'm doing sound and music at MTC right now, and one of the first things that we did was we were talking about what we wanted our rehearsal hall to be, and one of the things that we discussed was accessibility needs. And the way that, yeah, exactly what you said, the way that the students articulated the things that they required in order to be successful at their job, like it had some of the adults like just like surprised and shocked that they were able to just express themselves in that way. And I'm so grateful that a lot of kids now have access to be able to discuss those things, because that was not how it was when I was a kid.
No, 100%. Like, I definitely have memories of once upon a time being told, like, you know, stop crying, you're ruining XYZ moment. And it's wonderful to know that the adults in these kids' lives are helping them shake off some of that trauma and some of those negative experiences. And we're getting to usher in a wonderful, emotionally healthy wave of children, I hope, at least. But from what I've seen and from what I know you folks are doing, it's wonderful to be able to be a part of that. How about you, Katie? Did anything surprise you about this process?
I was surprised at the way that Kyle and I were immediately able to connect on things. Whenever Kyle and I haven't really hung out before, and so whenever I come up to a new person, I'm like, oh no, what are we going to talk about? What if we don't have enough things to talk about? And we consistently had way too much to talk about. and it's so lovely to be able to connect on these things and to articulate kind of some of our experiences. And I think that was a big surprise. I was like, I always feel like I'm not going to have enough, and then we get into a room and my goodness, there's not enough time.
Yeah, that's kind of the nice thing about these like short bursts of mentorship, is that it's really just kind of like mentorship speed dating, where you get to know a person, you get to work with them, and now you've got a friend, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
How do you kind of folks picture this mentorship kind of evolving, or what do you think you're going to kind of take with you from this process into your artistic practice moving forward?
This is not going to be the last time I'm working with Katie, just because we are so like close in what we're doing. Like, who knows? Like, maybe there'll be a JMTC X Meraki collab. Like, I would love that.
Yes.
I know a lot of students. Both students are in both groups, so it's really good to hear from the kids, like what they like at different things and why they do both of them. Like, it's really interesting because they are two completely different companies. But yeah, like there's only so many theater kids in the city, so I feel like collabing would be really great.
I love that like we have a friendship now where if things do go awry in our respective spaces, we can just connect with each other and be like, how did you handle this? Has this ever happened to you? What can we do with this? Because sometimes it can get really lonely, and you feel like you don't have people that you can talk to about some of these situations or some of these things that you experience, or like, I didn't do that quite well. Like, what are some ways that you've done it that you felt successful in? And it's nice to be able to have just another person to talk to that has sort of a base of understanding, and that isn't going to be like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? And why are you doing this? Like, what is the whole point of you doing these games? Like, why? Like, I don't have to start there and explain. We already have this immediate knowledge of stuff that we can sort of we already know this thing, so we can just get to the meat of it.
Yeah, it's good to be able to talk to somebody who does work with kids, as like talking to somebody who doesn't. It's a completely different ball game, so it's going to be good to be able to connect for sure.
Yeah, and it's such an important part about building the theater community, is that none of us are ever alone. Anything that you've experienced, there's a very good chance someone else experienced the exact same thing, and we're stronger as a community when we can talk about it and lean on each other.
Yeah.
Even if it's something as simple as just like, how do I handle a kid with a bad day?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've been doing this for a very long time. And so if I can maybe like suggest things so that Kyle doesn't make the same mistakes that I do, that Kyle can make like new mistakes or like new, then it's only going to make things better, right?
Yeah, totally.
Katie, I know that you've been kind of a mentor kind of off and on for other people, both formally and informally. So let's ask, what does mentorship kind of mean to the both of you, both the value of it and kind of mentorship in practice?
So I've had a lot of really wonderful mentors growing up that have, I think one of the biggest things is they tend to sort of see things that I'm capable of before I can see them. And I think that is really important, and they can like reflect back and let you know that you're like on a good path, or you're doing the right thing, or like maybe you try this path, you might be going down a dark, scary hallway. And so I think for me, mentorship has been that, and I've been very grateful for the people who have gently nudged me in certain directions and seen something in myself when I wasn't able to. And so I feel this need to sort of like give back to that a little bit, and to hopefully allow other people to experience that too, because I don't think I would be in theater if I didn't have a music teacher that told me that I could do this, or a parent that like drove me to my theater school classes all the time. Like those things are so important and crucial to developing who we are as artists. I don't know, I think it's really important, and also just to not feel alone and to feel like you've got friends. And so when we see each other in an audition room, or we see each other in a hall or something, we don't feel like we're standing by ourselves. We can go up and be like, hey, I'm here too. We're good. We're connected.
Being able to connect with someone and realize that they are just a human, just like me, and they're not scary, or they have been through the exact same place I have been, and they just have a little bit more, knowledge and experience. So yeah, being able to like pick her brain on all these questions I had were just so awesome, to be able to listen to what she has to say, or I'd bring up a question and she would just answer it in exactly how I needed to hear it. And I'm like, this is what I needed. And being able to have her be a mentor to me gives me like a bit more confidence definitely teaching kids now. I feel more like
you got tools in your toolkit.
Yes, thank you. I have more tools in my toolkit to be able to, work with kids and teach them. And I hope this won't be the last mentorship, not with Kate, but with somebody else too. Like I hope to learn from more people because I feel the more knowledge I can learn from people who have all different life experiences is really beneficial to everyone. And
it's such a gift from Vic to be able to have these conversations, to not necessarily know what it needs to be or what it's going to be, and not have to have some sort of like product in the end or like this is why we did this. Like it's such a gift to be able to just have space to find out what this relationship is going to be, as opposed to there being this like looming something over top. So literally it's very rare that you get these gifts in life to be able to get paid to have conversations. It's nuts. It's so wonderful.
Kyle, I know that you kind of are unofficially a mentor because you get to work with children, but if you were to be a mentor, what would you kind of want to pass along?
We kind of talked about this, like leaving a production of a show or like leaving a room full of cast members or leaving a show, like what I would want them to bring with them. And me and Katie just talked about this the other day, and like how like it's okay to say no in a rehearsal room, and it's okay to be able to put your foot up if you don't want to do something that makes you uncomfortable. Like being able for kids to have empathy for others and for even their like teachers and people that like their parents, even just having empathy for people. I'm a big person on like theater just for fun, and it's not a competitive sport. It's not about the end result, but it's more about the journey about getting there. And if one kid can't sing at the beginning of the year, but at the end of the year they're on stage singing their heart out, it's the little things that matter to me. Friends is a big thing, like finding a community, finding where they belong. The kids are actually changing younger kids' lives or even adults' lives. Like I remember going to theater when I was younger and watching a show saying I want to do that. And if a younger kid could come to a show and watch our kids perform and think that too, I think they've done their job, and they don't even know that they're inspiring these people. And like just letting them know that like this is a job and it can be done. And if you are kind to people and you work hard, that you're gonna make it and you're gonna be successful.
Yeah. I also love teaching that growth looks different for different people. That's something I know, like at the Vic, that we believe in really strongly. Where we get some students that came to us like fresh out of high school, especially during the pandemic, where they maybe hadn't sung in public either in a while or possibly ever, and them being able to do literally anything in front of anybody by the end of the year was considered just as big of an accomplishment as, I don't know, like someone being able to hit a high C or whatever, because it's still growth, and you still traveled the same distance as the other person did, but over, you know, like a different looking track, I guess.
That's something that I always say to my parents too, is that like Kyle and myself and you, Daphne, get to see that, and I feel like we are the lucky ones, because as much as we're like putting it all together, we actually get to like physically see that growth from point A to point B. And the show is great and it's lovely or whatever, but like we get to see all of these like little steps and all of the stumbling blocks and all of the things that make up where they get to. And I think that is such a wonderful gift to have, and it keeps you humble, and it keeps you remembering that it's a journey, and it's not just like from one point to the next point. Like you go through a whole process in order to get there, and sometimes we forget that. You go to a show and you're like, that show was great, I guess, but like you don't think about like where people came from. And so it's just like a nice physical representation of that reminder to like keep you humble.
Absolutely. So speaking of journeys, kind of what is next for you both together, respectively? Where do you go from here, Kyle and Katie?
I mean, I'm definitely going to take what I learned in this mentorship and apply it to the classes I'm teaching in January, going into my last semester of school. So I'm graduating in April. Can't wait. But like we have at the beginning of February, we're doing a show with Meraki called Perception. It's a student-written, student-driven show. It's on mental health awareness. So I'm very excited about that. And then in March, we have our big production of Wonderland, which is a spin-off of Alice Wonderland. So we're very excited about that one too. And also in March, closer to the end, I'm doing a production of Seussical just outside of Winnipeg at my other company in Oakbank. It's going to be busy, lots of shows coming up, but I'm excited to be able to, take what I've learned and apply it to warm-up games and rehearsals and tech week and communicating with technicians and all those kind of things that we talked about. And yeah, I'm really, really excited for it.
Katie, how about you? What's coming up next for you?
Well, Felix has a hockey tournament that starts up on Friday, so
Great.
I'm really excited about that. But like, in all seriousness, like, I try as much as I can to not necessarily like just validate like my arts things, because there are other pieces of my life that cause me to be such like a successful human being, and
Absolutely.
so I'm really looking forward to spending a sick amount of time with my kids, because I haven't really been able to hug them as much as I wanted to. I leave in January to go direct something at Persephone. This is How We Got Here by Keith Barker, which I'm just terrified and excited and terrified, because it's leaving town for the first time for me. I've directed a lot of stuff and like started shows and stuff, but for some reason this one feels just maybe different because I haven't worked for Persephone before, and it's like a whole bunch of people that I haven't ever actually really worked with. So there's that. And then I go to the Citadel in March with Sound of Music again, and there's gonna be so many other not so things that we end up doing. I know in all the in-betweens, I'm gonna figure out how to have children and live an online life with them for small periods of time, and then whatever else comes my way, because that's basically my life. Just random things come in, I go, sure, Kyle, yes, I would love to sit and talk with you for a bit. I didn't know that was happening, and it's one of my favorite points of this year.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because I've noticed things just randomly come up and you're like, I'll apply for this, I'll do this, why not? And it just, you never know, you can't really plan those kind of things. So definitely being out of school in April will be really helpful, as I'm going to have way more time to do those kinds of things and be able to commit myself completely to this rather than focusing on getting a degree. So that's going to be lovely.
Yeah, I know that for myself, after I graduated, I was like, oh God, what is going to happen next? And then things just kept happening, like little by little, piecemeal. And then it was like, oh, the next thing I know, I've been working in the arts more or less consistently for 5 years.
Yes!
But if I had tried to plan out my life 5 years in advance when I was like in my early 20s, I would have been terrified, and it would have had nothing going on in my day planner, but just blank pages that I felt expected to fill. And so leaning into the wonderful spontaneity of life in the arts and freelancing is a great way to move forward.
The only thing a plan does for me is it allows me to sleep that night.
Yes.
And then it will completely change.
Exactly. Taking it day by day for sure is how
absolutely.
I do it.
Do you folks have anything else that you wanted to share about this process, about working together?
I thought it was really great that Vic does opportunities like this. Like, I think I've never worked with the Vic before. This is my first time, and I was really grateful to have this opportunity experience to be able to do things like this and be able to talk to someone and ask questions that I'd otherwise be uncomfortable talking to anyone else about. So it's good to have just someone there to kind of support you and trust you and believe in you. It's good. It's really good. I think everyone should do it.
Absolutely.
I love that we are all doing it right now. We are all working. We're all artists. We're all doing the thing. And I think that's really, really important. Yeah, it's possible. It's absolutely possible.
It is absolutely possible. My tax statements at the end of the year are a wonderful mishmash of 6 different contracts, but it's definitely possible.
Oh my God. That's what I'm going to be doing in January, my taxes. Because every year, my tax person is like, please just give me your taxes early for the love of God. Just give me your taxes. So that's what I'm going to be doing in January.
Amazing.
There you go.
This is a reminder to everyone listening to this podcast, do your taxes.
Do your taxes.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for joining me, and thank you so much for being a part of this process. And I can't wait to see what you both come up with next.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Miigwech. Yeah, Team Miigwech, this is amazing. It was such a great gift.
Woo!
It takes two.
Thank you so much for joining us for Season 2 of It Takes Two. This season is generously supported by the Thomas Sill Foundation and the Canada Council for the Arts. This season is produced and edited by Daphne Finlayson. Original music for the show is provided by Paul DeGurse, with apologies to Stephen Sondheim for shamelessly airlifting part of It Takes Two from Into the Woods. If you'd like to learn more about this or any other podcasts in the Village Conservatory family, you can check out our website, villageconservatory.com, or follow us on social media at Village Conservatory.